Hello everyone. I am Dr. Akash Gautam from the University of Hyderabad. I am assistant professor here at the Center for Neural and Cognitive Sciences. So, in my previous lecture, I have already covered these two topics: gross neuroanatomy of the brain and spinal cord, as well as this central and peripheral nervous system. So in the today's lecture, I will try to cover these two important topics, that is neurons and action potential. So basically in today's lecture, we will see the structure and classification of neurons, as well as the function of neurons, that is generation and propagation of action potential. A typical neuron looks like this. Cell body or soma is the main part of a neuron, along with two appendages, or you can say processes, known as dendrites and axons. Axon is a long cylindrical structure which ends in axon terminals, or you can say synaptic buttons. Dendrites are short but branched structures which helps in receiving of stimulus from the presynaptic neuron. Cell body contains all the major cell organelles like nucleus, mitochondria, Golgi complex, endoplasmic reticulum, etc. This is remarkably similar to the other eukaryotic cells. So axon is covered by myelin sheath in most of the neurons, and those neurons are known as myelinated neurons. This myelin sheath is provided by non-neuronal cells, about which we have already studied in the previous lecture. Some of the neurons in human body are without any myelin sheath too, and those are known as unmyelinated neurons. Myelin sheath in myelinated neurons is not continuous and is interrupted at regular intervals, which gives rise to naked or unmyelinated regions in the axon. These regions are known as node of Ranvier after the name of French physician who discovered these nodes. Neurons can be classified into different ways. On the basis of polarity, these can be divided into unipolar, bipolar, multipolar, and pseudo-unipolar neurons. In unipolar neurons, SING process emerges from the soma, which can act as either dendrite or axon. For example, brush cells in the cerebellum. In bipolar neurons, one axon and one dendrite emerges from the opposite ends of the soma. Such type of neurons is found in the retinal cells. Multipolar neuron is a typical example of neurons in which one axon and many dendrites emerge from the soma. Most of the neurons in our body are multipolar neurons. Pseudo-unipolar neurons are variations of bipolar neurons in that they have two processes which fuse during their development into one short common axon. Example are superior and inferior ganglion of the vagus nerve. Another way to classify the neurons is based on their function. If a neuron receives a signal from outside, then it is known as sensory or afferent neuron. If a neuron sends a signal to the outside, then it is known as the motor or efferent neuron. Those neurons which connects these sensory and motor neurons are known as interneurons or association neurons. Okay, one more way to divide the neurons is based on the type of neurotransmitter they carry. So if a neuron is carrying acetylcholine, then it will be called as cholinergic neuron. If a neuron is carrying a GABA neurotransmitter, then it will be known as GABAergic neuron. Similarly, we can have glutamatergic neuron, dopaminergic neuron, serotoninergic neuron, and so on. Let us see the function of neurons now. Neurons receive the stimulus from the environment and transmit that stimulus or information to other neuron, gland, or muscles. The signal travels in the form of action potential from dendrites to axon terminals via axon. In next few slides, we will study how this action potential is generated and transmitted across the neuron. To understand the action potential, we must look deep into the cell membrane of a neuron. This neuronal membrane is similar to the cell membrane of other body cells, made up of phospholipid bilayer with glycoproteins, glycolipids, and cholesterol moieties attached to it. This bilayer contains many extrinsic, intrinsic, and integral proteins. Due to the hydrophobic nature of this bilayer, most of the biomolecules and ions are unable to pass across. This gives rise to their different concentrations inside and outside of a cell. But a cell is not like a closed system, and exchange of materials is possible due to integral proteins, which act as a protein channel. These protein channels are important for the functioning of a neuron. Let us see the difference in ion concentrations inside and outside of a nerve cell through this slide. The potassium ion concentration inside the neuron is 140 millimolar, whereas it is just 5 millimolar outside the cell. On the other hand, concentration of sodium ions is about 10 times more outside of the neuron as compared to the inside. Large anionic anions concentration is 100 millimolar inside the cell, but it is negligible outside the cell. Due to this different concentration of positive ions and negative ions across the impermeable cell membrane, the neuronal membrane develops a resistance as well as a membrane capacitance. The movement of ions across the cell membrane is possible through the integral proteins, which allows it by acting as ion channels and ion pumps. I hope all of you know the difference between ion channel and ion pumps. Ion pumps require energy, generally in the form of ATP, to transport the ions, whereas ion channels simply allow the passive diffusion of ions as per the concentration gradient, that is from higher concentration to the lower concentration of ions. Due to difference in the electrical charge across the cell membrane, a voltage or membrane potential is developed. When there is no net change in the ion concentration across the cell membrane and a neuron does not send the signal, then that potential is called as the resting membrane potential. But if there is any change in the membrane potential, then it acts as a signal for processing the information by our nervous system. This change in membrane potential can be achieved by opening of the ion channels in the plasma membrane, which leads to conversion of chemical potential to electrical potential by the movement of ions across the cell membrane. Okay, a neuron at resting membrane potential contains many open potassium channels and fewer open sodium channels. So in this case, you can see lots of potassium channels are open, whereas only few sodium potassium channels are open. So what will happen? Lot of potassium diffuses out of the cell and lesser sodium ions can diffuse inside as per the concentration gradient. The resulting buildup of negative charge within the neuron due to this passive diffusion of ions is the major source of resting membrane potential. Most of you might have read that the resting membrane potential is around minus 70 millivolt, negative 70 millivolt. But here is one major question. Why the passive diffusion of sodium and potassium ions leads to negative membrane potential instead of neutral or zero at rest? That is a tricky question and I will try to explain it in next slide. So here is the plasma membrane with extracellular fluid and intracellular fluid. Transport of potassium ions will occur from inside to the outside as per the concentration gradient, that is from higher to lower concentration. But remember, you are sending more positive ions outside the cell, means more negative charge inside the cell. Now due to that, an electrical gradient is developed and positively charged potassium ions will move from positive to negative side. negative charge side, that is from outside to inside. But again, after some time, the concentration of potassium ions will be more inside the cell. So similar sequence of events can be imagined for other cells. For example, for this sodium ions, the movement of sodium ions is from the outside of the cell to the inside of the cell as per the concentration gradient, but in opposite direction as per the electrical gradient. And this story will go on like this till an equilibrium of both forces, that is concentration gradient and electrical gradient, will be achieved. The sum of these chemical potential and the membrane potential is known as electrochemical potential or equilibrium potential and is represented by the capital letter E. So for example, EK here represents the electrochemical potential of potassium ions in neurons, which is measured as around minus 90 millivolt. Similarly, ENA represents the electrochemical potential of sodium ions in neuron, and it generally lies in the range of plus 60 to 62 millivolt. Now to answer my previous question that why membrane potential is negative instead of electrochemical gradient, you have to focus on the movement of anions. In this case, chloride ions can move easily across the cell as per their electrochemical gradient. But in this case, large-sized organic anions are unable to move outside of the cell. This distinction retains more negative charge inside the cell, and hence the resulting resting membrane potential is negative, that is around minus 70 millivolt. In chemistry, the equilibrium potential is measured by Nernst equation. In a resting neuron, the currents of potassium ions and sodium ions are equal and opposite, and the resting potential across the membrane remains steady. However, changes in membrane potential occur because neuronal membrane contains gated ion channels that open or close in response to stimuli. For example, voltage gated ion channels, ligand gated ion channels, etc. This is the equipment generally used by electrophysiologists to measure the electrochemical potential of a neuron. Here we have glass microelectrodes inserted in the neuron, which is connected to some amplifier and then further connected to the computer to obtain the values and related graphs of changes in this potential. The other end of glass microelectrode is kept outside the neuron and is taken as reference electrode. Now I will tell you two important terms associated with the changes in the membrane potential. Consider a situation in which positive ions are moving inside the cell from the outside. This will lead to the decreased magnitude of the membrane potential. Example, from minus 70 millivolt to minus 60 millivolt. This change is known as the depolarization. On the other hand, if there is more negative charge inside the cell, then this will lead to the increased magnitude of the membrane potential. Example, from minus 70 millivolt to minus 80 millivolt, and this change will be known as hyperpolarization. So with all this discussion, we can say that resting membrane potential is dependent upon three factors. First one is charge of the ion. Second, permeability of the membrane for a particular ion. And third one, the concentration of respective ions on both sides of the cell membrane. Using these three factors, Nernst equation was formulated by a German physical chemist, Walther Nernst, as equilibrium potential of ion is equal to minus RT by ZF ln concentration of ion inside divided by concentration of ion outside, where R is the ideal gas constant, F is Faraday constant, Z is the charge of ion. For example, for calcium it is +2, but for chloride ion it is -1, and T represents temperature of our body, which is always taken as 37 degrees Celsius. After putting all these values of these constants and changing natural log to common log, you will get this value as around minus 60 millivolt, followed by log concentration of ion inside divided by concentration outside in millivolt. For example, for sodium ions, outside concentration is 142 millimolar, whereas inside concentration is 14 millimolar. Then equilibrium potential for sodium will be minus 58 log 14 divided by 142. That is inside divided by outside. So that will come around minus 58 log 0.1. And finally, if you convert log 0.1 into that is 1 by 10, so that will be plus. So equilibrium potential of sodium is plus 58 millivolt. Okay, the main problem in Nernst equation is the consideration of a single ion rather than all the major ions involved in the maintenance of electrochemical gradient. Therefore, another equation by Goldman and other scientists was given as following: Vm, or membrane potential, is equal to RT by F, natural log permeability of ions multiplied by their concentration extracellular divided by intracellular concentration. So actually this considers the permeability of ions also in addition to their concentrations. If we put the respective permeabilities ratio of different major ions in a neuron, we get the value of electrochemical potential for typical neuron as minus 70 millivolt. So the ratio of permeabilities for potassium, sodium and chloride ion is in the ratio of 100, 4 and 45. So when you put all these figures along with their concentrations, so you will get this value of minus 70 millivolt. Okay, so all these factors like permeability of ions, concentration of ions, etc. lead to the rapid transient change in the membrane potential that spread rapidly along the nerve fiber membrane and is known as action potential. Let us see how this action potential is generated in 5 simple steps. In the first step, most volt-gated sodium ion channels as well as most of the voltage-gated potassium ion channels are closed. Due to this condition, resting membrane potential of minus 70 millivolt is maintained in the neuron. Now, when there is any stimulus, then some of the voltage-gated ion channels starts to open. So in this case, you can see few of the sodium ion channels have been opened and Na plus or sodium ion is entering inside the cell. This leads to the slight depolarization of the membrane from its resting potential and voltage reaches up to minus 50 millivolt. During the third step, there is opening of more sodium channels at minus 50 millivolt and hence more inflow of positive ions. This leads to the more depolarization or rising phase of the action potential. During this step, threshold is crossed above the graded response. So this threshold is crossed above the graded responses and the membrane potential increases, reaching up to the peak at around plus 40 millivolt. During the fourth step, voltage gated sodium ion channels are closed or become inactivated due to voltage of plus 40 millivolt. However, voltage gated potassium ion channels open and potassium flows out of the cell. This leads to the starting of the falling phase of action potential. During the fifth and final step, potassium ion channels starts to close, but at a very slow pace due to their intrinsic structural property. This delayed closing lead to the more exit of potassium ions and hence hyperpolarization phase, or you can say undershoot of the action potential occurs. Therefore, voltage gated ion channels play a major role in the generation of action potential. After this disequilibrium of ion concentration, the original concentration similar to that of resting membrane potential is maintained by the active transport of ions against their concentration gradient by the sodium-potassium pump. Sodium-potassium pump is an ATPase which transports 2 potassium ions inside the cell in exchange to the 3 sodium ions outside of the cell. Sodium-potassium pump is an ATPase which transports these sodium and potassium ions. This pump is electrogenic, means it can change the electric potential of the cell as well as concentration gradient of the ions. And this is the well-known cycle of this pump where it uses ATP and perform its functioning by repeated phosphorylation and dephosphorylation cycles. This figure summarizes the nature of all ion channels during different phases of action potential. Just before crossing the threshold, few sodium ion channels are open. At the peak, sodium ion channels get closed and potassium ion channels open. This leads to the falling phase and hyperpolarization. And once potassium ion channels are closed, action potential reaches to the resting membrane potential again. The action potential fails to occur if the stimulus is lower than the threshold. Also, if threshold is crossed by a strong stimulus, then it occurs with constant amplitude and constant form, regardless of the strength of the stimulus. The action potential is therefore all or none in character and is said to obey the all or none law. You might have noticed that the propagation of signal was occurring only from soma to axon terminal in all the previous slides. This unidirectionality is provided by the two important aspects of ion channels. First one is the inactivation of sodium ion channels for a prolonged duration after the action potential generation. And second is the delayed inactivation of potassium ions after the action potential, due to which action potential can be generated in forward direction only, where action potential is still not generated and not backwards. Once action potential has been generated, then how it is propagated to the other parts of axon. Let us see this propagation first in unmyelinated neurons. At the site of action potential, sodium ions are entering inside the cell, due to which more positive ions are there as compared to the outside. Now these positive ions move towards the negative ions located adjacent to the action potential site. This local current flow depolarizes the adjacent inactive area from resting to threshold, whereas rest of the axon remains in resting membrane potential. After some time, the active region of action potential comes under hyperpolarization phase and adjacent area crosses the threshold and enters the action potential rising phase. Now the adjacent new area tries to cross the threshold due to the local current flow, and similar to the previous this case, and this continues and propagation of signal occurs. In myelinated neurons also the process is almost same, but due to impermeable sheath, myelin sheath, the local current flows to the next available open site, that is node of Ranvier, for production of action potential. This type of movement, known as saltatory conduction, increases the speed of signal propagation. So this is my last slide, which shows the many bursts of action potential recorded by that equipment only. And thank you all for your attention.